I'm not sure that you were receiving the audio, so I'm going to start over again. Check on that. Okay, so give me just a moment. All right, gotcha. So let's start over. And you didn't miss that much. We're going to be looking at proactive speaking this week. Now, this whole thing is entitled Proactive Speaking, but I've divided it into two parts. The first part had to do with proactive thinking. This part has to do with proactive what? Speaking, okay? And when we talk about proactive thinking, proactive speaking, what we're looking at is how you and I can stop being reactive. That is, how we can stop responding and reacting to our speaking situations. How we can stop being afraid of certain speaking situations. How we can stop feeling like we are being controlled by our speech, like we're victims, right? What we want to do is we want to be victors. We want to be victorious over our speech. In fact, we want to use our speech as an asset and not as a liability. We want to feel confident and controlled in our speaking situations. And so the way that we think about ourselves as speakers, the way that we think about our speaking situations, the way that we think about other people and how they think of us. In fact, I'll tell you a little something about that in just a moment. But so the way that we think impacts how we speak. But also, it's not just how we think. Excuse me. It's not just how we think. It's also how we speak. It's also how we speak. So some people just watch the videos, and they watch the videos over and over, or they listen to the audio over and over, and it's very helpful to them. But generally speaking, it's got to go beyond that. We have to actually change how we speak, and that's what we're going to look at today. Now, I promised you that I would say something a little bit about how we see ourselves and how we see others. And one of the things that many of my clients have told me is that when they get to the place where they don't care about what other people think, now listen to this, and some of you will be able to identify. When they get to the place where they just don't care what other people think about them, that's when they move forward the fastest. That's when they move forward the most. Okay? So it's this almost I don't care attitude. I'm going to do what I need to do. It's not a I don't care as in I don't respect you. I'm just going to say whatever I want to say and act the way I want. No. It's this, you know what, I'm not going to worry about how I look, about how I might sound. I'm not going to worry about if someone likes the way I'm speaking. I'm going to focus on speaking well. I'm going to do what I need to do to speak well. I'm not really going to care about what other people say or think about me. And it's this kind of attitude that gives them the confidence and the courage that they need to really move forward. So let's take a look at some specific characteristics of what I call proactive speaking. Now, the more I work with clients and the more I refine my program, you may find that I change or modify somewhat the terminology. But generally speaking, it's always going to remain the same. And when I say remain the same, the essence of it is going to remain the same, right? So let me just give you a basic example. If we use the word extending, well, sometimes we might interchange that with stretching. Essentially the same thing, extending your words, stretching your words. So you may hear me use both words. Okay, so that's an example. Now what I want to do is to talk to you today about some very specific proactive speaking skills. And in the book, I've defined them using some slightly different terminology than you may hear me use in other videos or in other programs. But much of it is essentially the same. So let's just go through what's in the book and talk about that. All right, one of them has to do with getting your body into it, that is using your body to speak. So I call this a proactive speaking skill. Why? Why is it important to get your body involved? Well, if you think about what sometimes people do is they're very stiff, right? They're very tight, okay? And they start to tense up. Or their body starts doing things that they don't want it to do. They bang, they hit their leg, they tap the table, they move their leg, they move their eyes, their mouth, their head, right? So we do all kinds of different things with our bodies to try to force these words out. And then it becomes a habit, right? So maybe at some point in the future, at some point in the past, the person was trying to push these words out and they just started to do things, and then that became a habit. So what I want you to do is, rather than letting your body do what it wants to do, you take and you use your body to help you create a rhythmic way of speaking. Now, when we talk about our body, we can talk about the different zones of our body. One zone being this zone here, the head zone, let's call it. There's many different ways that you can use your head and everything contained therein. Your mouth, right? Your eyes in particular, your eyebrows, right? And your head itself, how you use your head. Watch when people talk. I just want you to go out and watch how people speak. Watch how they talk. Watch how they tilt their head forward and back and to the side. Watch how they use their eyebrows, right? Watch how they focus their eyes, where they focus their eyes. Watch how they use their mouth as they're speaking. Watch this. Observe how people who speak well use their head, which is obviously a part of their body, yes? Watch them, and you're going to be amazed to see how people actually use their head while they're speaking. Now, if these people are excellent speakers and they use their head while they're speaking, they use their face, they use their eyes, they use their eyebrows, they use their mouth, right? Why shouldn't you? If you want to become an excellent speaker, this isn't just about not stuttering, it's about you becoming an excellent speaker. Why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't I? You should, right? You should use your head, your face, while you're speaking. Now, what else? Another major part of our bodies that we can use while we're speaking has to do with our arms, right? Has to do with our arms. And there's lots of different ways that we can use our arms while we're speaking. And you see me using my hands and using my arms now as I'm speaking, right? And you see me using my face as I'm speaking. And so there are some just basic motions that we can use while we're speaking, hands open, nice and relaxed, going like this. And we're using our hands to almost orchestrate, right? Just a nice, relaxed, smooth. So you don't see me going like this while I'm speaking, but you see me going like this. It also keeps me from speaking really fast. If I were speaking really fast and I were going like this, that would be distracting, right? And it'd be tiring too. It's like working out. So it's just the way that we can, in a very relaxed manner, use our hands to help to orchestrate our words, orchestrating our words. You might also see me use my hands doing things like this. You may see me use my hands as almost just to represent something graphically. So I may go like this, or I may draw something like a wave pattern, or go like this. I may do all kinds of things with my hands to describe what I'm talking about, okay? So these are very great ways, very creative ways to use your hands and, in fact, your arms while you're speaking. Now, a few cautions. You want to try to keep your hands out of this zone. So you don't want your hands in front of your face. Now, I know my hands look very white now because I have light shining on me, so it's going to make them whiter than normal. And I say that because someone said, wow, his hands are so white. They left that comment on a YouTube video. Probably because I had some light shining on them. But you want to try to keep your hands out of this zone here, right? Because it gets distracting. It's kind of in your way. You probably don't need to lift your arms up a whole lot, right, when you're speaking. I mean, you may see me do it occasionally if I'm describing something that's really big, right? But most of the times, I'm going to have my arms at a 45-degree, a 90-degree angle, something like that, right? Something just right around in here. And I'm going to be using my hands in that way. And I'm going to try to keep them below this area here. Occasionally you may see me with my arms down here, or you may see me with one arm down here. And most of the times I'm not just going to be standing like this with my arms down to my side. Now, some speakers and some speaker associations may advise you to have your hands down to the side, or if you're standing behind a podium, to gently have your hands on the podium. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I just prefer not to have my hands down because it feels to me very strange. It feels very boring. Just have my hands here like this. So I generally will keep my hands here, or I'll use one or both of my hands while I'm speaking. And that's my style. I do recommend that you also learn to use your hands. And obviously you don't need to use them all the time, and you don't have to use them all the time with every word that you're saying. But I do advise you to learn how to use your hands, because it can help you, especially if you get stuck. It can help you expend energy. It can help you create a rhythmic way of speaking. It can actually help you get your words out by using your hands to assist you, using your body to assist you. Okay, enough about the hands and the arms. Just want to get. Well, what about the rest of our body? The rest of our body, we want to keep our shoulders relatively square, right? And one of the things that I may have mentioned in the past is when I'm doing these live shows or when I'm doing my videos, I'm relatively stationary, right? So you're not going to see me moving around a lot unless I'm going to write on my whiteboard. And I'm not going to come in too close to the camera. So you're going to see me relatively stationary. And that's just because I have a range in which I can move in. But if we were doing something live, right, if I was doing a live workshop, then I would be moving around. So I'd be using my whole body because I would be moving around. And I wouldn't necessarily be pacing, but I might walk over here and stop and talk for a little while. I might step back and talk. I might turn around and write on a whiteboard or move a slide or something. I might walk into the audience. So I'm usually not going to just be standing in one place as I am now because of the camera. All right? So you can use your entire body. Let's take a look now at the next part of this. And in the book, I talk about the neural groove rhythm technique. Essentially, you won't hear me talk about that anymore, not because it's not relevant, but what that has to do with is you creating a rhythmic way of speaking, right? Just creating a more rhythmic way of speaking. The best way to do this is to model someone who speaks with a rhythm. So listen to what I just said. Model someone who speaks with a rhythm. That was a rhythmic way of saying that, okay? And just as people do when they're singing, they have a rhythm to the way that they are saying the words. You can learn how to speak with a rhythm. And when you learn to speak with a rhythm, what it does is it helps you develop this momentum, right? It helps you maintain that airflow that you need. And it makes your speech more dynamic. So rhythmic speech contains articulation, it contains extending certain words, it contains inflecting, it contains pausing. So develop a more rhythmic way of speaking, and the best way to do this is to model someone who speaks that way. And I have just a little story that I'll tell you a little later about modeling and how powerful that is. Another thing that you'll find in the book with regards to proactive speaking is finding your perfect speaking voice, right? And so you may need to actually raise the tone or the pitch of your voice a little. Maybe your voice is just too low. It's just kind of down here like, hey man, what's going on? And maybe you have to just raise it up a little. And often that means inflecting more, right? That just means inflecting more. In fact, I usually recommend that you inflect on almost every word. Just a little bit. I mean, you don't have to inflect a lot on every word, But you should focus your mind on inflecting at least a little on every word so that you don't sound monotone like this, so that you don't sound monotone like that, right? The second one I was inflecting a little bit on every word, okay? So keep that in mind, that you want and you may need to actually change your voice somewhat. You may need to actually, in conversations, I'm not just talking about presentations, you may actually need to raise the pitch, raise your tone just a little. Right? You don't want it to be so high it's uncomfortable. You may need to raise it. Or it may be so high that you need to lower it some. Okay, you may need to just relax it down and lower it. You may need to change the volume of your voice. Some people speak too loud. You're like, I can't. And some people speak too low. What? I can't hear you. And I found years ago that when I first started transforming my speech, people used to say, I can't hear you, can you speak up? Because I would speak soft, just because I was focusing on just being relaxed. And sometimes it still happens. Not too often, but sometimes a person say, well, can you speak up? I'm more aware of it now, so I tend to try to speak up more. When I do presentations, I can do it for hundreds of people, and I know how to project my voice now. Even though I'm a relatively soft-spoken person, I know how to project my voice from my diaphragm, okay? So just because you're soft-spoken doesn't mean you can't project your voice. And it doesn't mean that you have to project your voice all the time. So better for you to be a little more soft-spoken, but relax your voice, relaxing yourself, relaxing your voice, and have people say, well, can you speak up a little? And you just adjust it up and you figure out, how do I adjust my voice so people can hear it, but where I'm not straining my voice? Does that make sense? So you have to learn how to do that, okay? So finding your perfect voice. The fourth one, speaking with energy and passion. You're going to hear me talking about this, but you'll hear me talk about it in a slightly different way. You may hear me talk about, in fact, you will hear me talk about dramatic speech. So one of the things that I found that's helped many of my clients is learning to speak more, dramatically. And it's putting more energy into your speech. And if you just think, let me just speak with more energy. Let me just put more into my speech, with more enthusiasm. Let me speak a little more dramatically, even in conversations. They find they don't have to think about articulating and inflecting and extending and all those things. Just put more energy into the speech, and they find that they're now speaking more proactively, that they now have more control over their speech, and their speech is smoother. I watch people do all the time. I watch them hold back, and then their speech is choppy. And I watch them put more energy, and they just blast right through words that they just seconds ago had problems with. Speaking with more energy, okay? Finally, varying your volume, which we talked about. We just talked about that you may need to vary your volume. One technique that I have used in the past as I'm coaching people when they're just getting started, if they just can't get anything out, have them drop their volume, just keep dropping it down to a whisper until they get comfortable feeling and hearing themselves, even in a whisper, speak fluently. Then we slowly raise the volume back up until they're speaking at a regular volume fluently, okay? So this is just a technique where you may need to adjust your volume. All right. Now, I wanted to talk with you just a moment and give you an example of how important modeling is. One of the young ladies who I'm coaching now told me that she actually had a Toastmasters event, and it was last Thursday, I believe. And she actually won the first place ribbon. In fact, she's going to scan that for us and get that up somewhere. First place ribbon, standing ovation. Now people are asking her to chair committees and do all kinds of stuff because she's such an excellent speaker. And one of the things that she did that really helped her, she said, is, I just modeled you. I pictured you while I was speaking. I just pictured myself as you when I stood up. And as I was speaking and as I was picturing you, I felt more and more relaxed, more and more confident, and I started to enjoy what I was saying more and more. Just because what it was doing is taking me out of the equation, and now I was really almost someone else. I said, that's exactly what I used to do when I started. I modeled someone, and whenever I would present, I would just picture myself as them. And it did wonders. It's the fastest way, and it's the easiest way to smooth, fluent, confident speech. But you have to practice. You can picture, right? You can picture, but you also have to practice. You have to practice so that your neurons wire together in that pattern. Your neurons say, okay, this is how this person speaks. We're going to copy that, and we're going to develop a pattern of speech that's just like that. And the more you do it, the longer you do it, it becomes your way of speaking, and you adapt it and you modify it, and you no longer need to really picture your model. It's just the way you speak, and you've made your own adaptations to it, okay? It's still you speaking. When a person looks at you, they see you. They don't see the other person, right? You didn't become the other person. You're still you, but you're modeling that other person. You're almost trying to copy them as exact as you can, as closely as you can. It's an extremely helpful, powerful way to jump from wherever you're at to smooth, fluent speech. Okay? So I want to wrap us up there, and I just really wanted to kind of review what was in this book as it relates to proactive thinking and proactive speaking. But I'm always trying to outdo myself. That is, I'm always trying to make whatever I'm doing obsolete, put myself out of business. So I'm always looking for faster ways, better ways to do whatever it is that I'm doing. If I can help you speak more smoothly and fluently and confidently, if I can help you say what you want to say faster and make it last, by golly, I'm going to do it, okay? And every client makes me better. Every time I work with a client, it makes me better. I learn more from that client. And I take what I learn and I pour it back into you, right? I pour it back into the programs. The foundation stays the same, right? What I have is a strong, solid foundation. So if you go and you look at the Pro 90 speech system, just about everything's in there. It's all in there. But what I learned from my clients is I learned, okay, I need to focus on these things more because these are like the most effective strategies and techniques that help people get to where they want to get the fastest. So it's all in there. I just may focus on different areas to produce a better product and service for you. So I want to thank you very much for checking out this live broadcast. And I'd like to encourage you to visit the links that I'm going to put up. If you have an iPhone, get the app. Get the app because you're going to have everything right there in the palm of you. You can record, you can schedule, you can track yourself, you can watch this live broadcast on your iPhone. In fact, I'm recording this from my iPhone. You can do all those things. I did just decide, just today, to start development on the Android version. So in about a month or two, we should have an Android version out there for you because I know there's a lot of people with Androids. So I did decide to go ahead and invest the money in the Android version. So I hope that I hope a lot of you will take advantage of that as well. And I implore you to get this new training that I just put out, that is how to get started speaking easier. I want all of you to get that. It's a 34-minute training. I think you're going to find it's well worth it. If you ever have problems getting started speaking, right, you're going to want to get this training. It's absolutely free. I really want to encourage you to get this training, and I'm going to put a link right after this live broadcast. So leave me your comments. Have comments, you have questions, go ahead and leave those for me. I'll check them out, reply to them. If you're ready to take that next step, I want to encourage you to go ahead and check out the Pro 90 speech system. It is the very best in the world. If you follow it, your speech is going to be dramatically different inside of 90 days. But that's not it. You're going to have to keep working. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to work hard, but it's going to make a huge difference. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next